Tag bangers. That's a term that probably hasn't been said out loud in at least 30 years. It's a mashup of the words tagger, or graffiti artist, and banger, aka gangbanger, tag banger. Fox News Undercover coined the term. The people involved in it? Well, they were just a little too busy living that life. Tag banging was active back in the late 80s and 90s. It kind of faded away by the 21st century and no one really knows why. Crush Unit's guess? There's no money in it. But there was fame. Fame that came from respect. And back then, getting respect on the streets as an individual, or as a crew, or as a gang was paramount. Sure, there were the skaters, jocks, and musicians ranging from punk rock bands to MC and DJ battles. But we're talking about the 1990s, when LA was the gang capital of the world. Accounts may vary, but word on the street is that a tagging crew called AOB, or All Out Bombing, started the craze. Lots of taggers incorporated the Cholo gangster look, but these AOB heads were straight up thugs. They sported California Angels hats, Dickies, and flannels, instead of the more tagger look. The only way to know they were less gang and more rider was by looking at the shoes. Reeboks, Vans, Shell-toe Adidas, New Balance, and any Nikes other than Cortez were the identifiers. See, the name of the game was getting your name up. You'd see a tagging moniker spray painted on a wall, and usually the name of their crew was included too. If you crossed them out, that was a declaration of war. It's on you to call out the individual or the whole crew, but either way, it's dissing them, and the days of duking it out over it evolved. By the 1990s, if you got caught slipping, you'd get jumped, if you were lucky. You get to fight another day. But once tag banging gained momentum, so did the tools of the trade. Suddenly, it wasn't uncommon to pack a gun or knife along with spray paint cans and markers in your bag. Other crews soon got in on the action. Beef started, and what made it even more treacherous was that tagging crews clicked up with street gangs. Some belonged to both a crew and a gang, doubling their enemies overnight. In West LA, you had non-stop action, and they repped their hood along with sets like Sotel 13 and West Los. This meant that their bitter enemies, like the Culver City Boys or Santa Monica 17th Street, had to watch out for both NSA and these other vadios. In East Hollywood, there was MWA, or Most Wanted Artists, who linked up with MS-13, which meant 18th Street was fair game. OTR, or On the Run, were down with everyone from JFX or Jeff Rocks, DFS aka Drifters, and Rebels 13. NTS, or Notorious, also linked up with some hoods, as well as NHD, Knuckleheads. Sometimes the graffiti crew had no gang affiliates, so they had to walk a fine line in the neighborhood they lived in. You have a bunch of cholos drinking outside, and if they see you spray painting on a wall, they just might want to go see if you're a problem. And chances are they'll make one for you if you're a total stranger to them. One notable crew was CBS, out of Hollywood's Fairfax district. Can't Be Stopped, or California Bomb Squad, were known to be aerosol artists. These guys weren't satisfied with just scribing their name on a bus window or even doing heavens on a freeway sign. They took graffiti art to a whole new level, with veterans of the crew now hosting art gallery shows and even making documentary films. The same went for guys like West Coast artists, with members becoming professional artists, such as Mir One, who's from both WCA and CBS. But back in the 90s, even CBS got in on the tag banging fiasco. Imagine artists picking up a gun out of survival. Anger from CBS, who has a rather fitting nickname, was not someone you wanted to mess with. He'll beat your ass so hard you'll be trying to walk it off like Burbick versus Mike Tyson. Although CBS and the aforementioned NSA crew lived 6 miles apart, which is like a world away in LA, they were still battling it out for street dominance. On June 25, 1993, one of the original members and founders of CBS, Aaron Anderson, who went by Skate, tragically died when an Amway train struck him while he was bombing a freight train. This loss was deeply felt by a lot of crews in Los Angeles, especially his friends in CBS. He was bigger than life. Literally, since Aaron was 6'6" and weighed over 300 pounds. But it's also because he was a down-to-earth, solid dude who showed respect to a lot of writers and was a natural leader. unfazed to talk to anyone, from the mayor of LA, Tom Bradley, to some cops sweating his friends. After Skate passed, nonstop action and Can't Be Stopped started squashing their beef. Now it's common to see old school members of these two crews hanging out together. Speaking of losses in the graph world, Eric Search 1 Ginsberg from UTI, SFE, RTDK, and TBK also died young in his sleep back in 2017. Out of respect, I'll just leave it at that. Search was another person who wasn't just some bomber. His art speaks for itself. Do you know how hard it is to invent your own font? It's not easy, especially doing it freehand. Search did that on stickers like it was nothing. Guys like him, Sleaze, Hex, Saber, Whisk, Sir, Slick, Gesso, Euler, and a bunch of others were street artists through and through. Tag banging was more of an inconvenience for them, a distraction from aerosol art. In East LA, there were the crazy-ass Mexicans, Cam. They pretty much had to live up to that name. In one incident, 2 members of KAM were killed. One was taken out for being in the wrong hood, and the other over a dispute involving a girl. Like I said, respect. And that went beyond crossing out tags on the walls. It was straight up gang shit. Staring at someone or in gang speak, mad dogging them was enough to get you seriously hurt. Then there were the racially motivated fights. A party and tagging crew called Boots out of South LA, but who were bused to a school in West LA battled a local gang called MTO, Mexicans taking over. Thankfully, outside of a few scuffles, MTO and Boots settled their differences with football matches. Boots were roughnecks, but they weren't thugs. Some of them were jocks, taking their high school's B football team to win the league championship in 1990. Boots was a party crew, so a sort of peace treaty was formed and they played ball with MTO instead of fighting. Afterwards, they showed good sportsmanship and ended their beef, shaking hands with many of them becoming friends. Sometimes you have to battle a guy to end it, once and for all. Down in the Culver City and Mar Vista areas, you had tag banger crews like LOK, Lords of Crime, and in Santa Monica, KSP, Kansas Street Posse, with the former clicked up with CXC and the latter with Santa Monica 17th Street Gang. Venice 13, meanwhile, had a graph crew down with them called Using Street Knowledge. But here's the thing, most riders got into tag banging back in the day, since the culture comes with an us versus them ideology. It's a competitive sport. Plus, when you're 14, 15, 18 years old, there's just a lot of testosterone to release, and that aggression manifests itself in violent tendencies. If it wasn't fighting, it was juvenile delinquency. Racking or shoplifting became an art in itself. Kids in the hoods of LA didn't have any money back then. We'd get what, like $10 from our parents for a weekend of fun? That is not enough to get beers, and especially tools of the trade like spray paint cans, markers, and in some cases, food. So we racked. Ever notice how spray paint cans are locked behind glass? That started in the 90s from the rise in theft. We have to make a special mention to Daniel Ramos.
Graffiti artist pleaded no contest today to 10 misdemeanor charges. Daniel Ramos, who uses the moniker Chaka, is believed responsible for causing $500,000 in property damage. The 18-year-old could face a possible 5-year jail term and $10,000 fine.
AKA Chaka, one if not the most prolific graffiti writers of that time. You'd see Chaka everywhere. In LA, of course, but also in San Francisco, San Diego, and even in Tijuana. On freeway signs, bus stop benches, trains, 10 stories up on a building, and his name was even on a drum kit in a Nirvana video. His bold, impact font style Chaka was up every mile or two in some areas. Ramos didn't have any interest in tag banging. He just wanted the infamy, and he got it. When he got busted, authorities estimated that he did $500,000 in damages and made graffiti a felony if there's more than $400 worth of damages. Ramos did jail time, was charged $10,000, and is now a celebrated figure in the graffiti world. Recently, he collaborated with Born and Raised, and his merch was highly sought after. Belmont Tunnels and the LA River were where the most prolific graph artists did their thing. Pieces, burners, throw-ups, block letters, wild styles, heavens, and general tagging got your name known if you did it there. It was illegal, of course, but it was easier to be crafty in these places since there were a lot of places to hide, and, if needed, to run from the police. You'd see massive top-to-bottoms like the infamous one seen here by the MTA crew, Metro Transit Assassins. or this famous one done by Sable. I mean, look at the size of that thing. Apparently, 14 MTAs were eventually arrested for the crime in order to pay millions in restitution. This is the heart and soul of graffiti, not tag banging, not some piece done on an iPad. Real graph is not permitted. It's illegal and always will be, barring those trendy eras when every auto body shop seemed to want a piece on their gate. Look, there's nothing wrong with making money from your art, but true blue graph is about putting your life on the line, sometimes quite literally, to get your name up. At its core, graffiti is not a violent act. I wouldn't call it a cry of resistance either. More of a way for the voiceless to be heard, to be seen, to be recognized, to be respected. And ultimately, a lot of these kids grew up to be men and women who graduated to professional art, creating beautiful expressions, political messages, surrealist paintings, cartoons, and maybe even designing that menu you're looking through at Burgers R Us. That's gonna do it. We hope that you enjoyed this tale of a little-known world called tag banging. See you in the next video. Peace.